Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Daily Manchester United. It's Friday, you made it. You get to hear three wonderful voices for the next half hour or so. I'm Kieran. Tonight, I say tonight, when you're hearing this, I'm joined by Sam. Sam, how are you?
Yeah, very good, very good.
And I'm also joined by Cormac. Cormac, welcome along.
Yeah, thanks again. Glad to be joining them again.
I'm sure you are, Cormac. You sound delighted to be here. Yes, today it's Preview Friday. We've got the Everton game on, well, when you're listening to this, tomorrow at 12:30 on TNT Sports 1. And we're here to talk about a little bit of talking points before the game, including our injury and illness crisis, whatever it may be. We're also going to talk about Amirim and how multiple news outlets have already reported that apparently he's in the sack race, before rounding off this episode with a bit of a predicted 11 with the bare bones squad that we have left. So let's dive into this straight away. Let's preview the Everton game. Obviously, off the back of that defeat against Tottenham, sorry to remind you all, it's time to fight back and get 3 points. But Sam, we are up against probably the most informed team in the league so far, and Moyes has come back, and Everton are firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, it doesn't look good for us at all. It doesn't bode well. I was literally going to say that about Everton. Obviously, they got the draw against Liverpool in the derby, which was an outrageous game, and then obviously they've just beaten Palace as well away from home at Selhurst Park, which is never an easy place to go, and definitely never an easy place to go for United down the past couple of years. But yeah, Goodison Park, 12:30 kickoff. I mean, it really doesn't look good for us, and it'll be another game where we go into it and fearing the worst, unfortunately. And I mean, Everton haven't had the best of season by any stretch of the imagination, but they've gotten what we haven't really in terms of the new manager bounce, and they seem to have found a little bit of confidence, and as we've said, they're going on a little bit of a run. So yeah, it's not looking great.
It's not looking great, Cormac. I mean, Everton have just, with that 2-1 win over Palace that Sam just mentioned there, have now moved above us by a single point. Any more comments other than that? That just sums it up, really, doesn't it?
No, it does. I mean, if you told me Everton would be ahead of us, 2 months ago, I would have told you you're crazy. But I mean, yeah, Everton, as Sam said, they're the informed team right now, going away to Goodison. It will be scary for us, and everything at Everton, they just had their new stadium, a new event there the other day. The whole club seems to be buzzing. So, yeah, it's definitely not the time we want to be going there after the back of that loss and just all the injuries we've been taking. So, yeah, I think we'll do well to get a result there at the weekend.
I will say as well, this is probably the last time, barring any FA Cup run, that Manchester United will be visiting Goodison Park there, Cormac. Goodison has brought some pretty good memories. We've also got a good couple of players from there. Marouane Fellaini comes out as one, which maybe it shouldn't, but it does. Lukaku also played for both clubs. I mean, it's a club that has brought through many good players over its time. Mikel Arteta as well.
Fellaini, he mightn't have been the most technical footballer, but wow, he had many a goal for us, and I think it was under Mourinho, he just lobbed him up top the last few minutes and hoped for the best. And yeah, to be fair, he scored some important goals for us. And Lukaku, I actually love Lukaku at United. I know he kind of fell off, maybe the last year, but he was scoring goals for us, and he was a presence up there. So yeah, no, there's been great connection. And then obviously we've seen that Garnacho goal last year against Everton at Goodison. So praying to God he can top that this weekend, but it'll be hard to do.
Yes, Puskas award-winning, we might add, goal at Goodison Park. I mean, Sam, again, some good memories of Goodison. We'll be able to see it off, hopefully with 3 points, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to what I said about Selhurst Park. It's just one of those grounds for any team, really, that on their day they give you a really tough game, and the atmosphere being quite close to the pitch. And yeah, I mean, it's obviously, it's sad that they're moving ground, but obviously sad and happy times for them as well as they look forward, as Cormac said, to their new ground, which looks amazing. I mean, yeah, as Cormac said, they had their first tester game and it looked really, really good. yeah, Goodison, it's had a lot of tough battles there for United, and yeah, we've had some good memories, some not so good memories, but yeah, Everton have always been one of those teams, possibly not in recent years, although under David Moyes, it's sort of feeling like they're getting back to what we all remember them as growing up in sort of that Barclays era where they had a really solid team in terms of like Tim Cahill, Fellaini, Tim Howard in goal. That, to me, that was Everton at one of their best, where they were pushing for Europa League, and yeah, Goodison Park was never a nice place to go. So, but hopefully we get one more win there on Saturday.
Yeah, hopefully the corner flags are safe and whatnot. We shall see. But nevertheless, Cormac, is looking through some of the players at Everton to keep our eye on. The one that comes up the most, and probably one of the most informed players right now, Beto, 5 goals in the Premier League, would put him joint second, in fact, in the Man United top goal scorers in this Premier League season. I mean, he is the most informed striker in this fixture. There's no shying away from that.
No, yeah, I mean, he'll definitely be one to watch. He's done very well replacing Calvert-Lewin with injury there and scored an important goal against Liverpool. And yeah, I mean, his goal scoring record the last few games has been impressive, so he'll be one to watch. And yeah, they have a few others as well. I thought Carlos Alcaraz has kind of come in there and done something as well. Obviously, I think probably the best player in my opinion in DI. Luckily he's missing, but yeah, no, they have a plethora. Even with injuries, they have players to fill the voids, like Beto's doing with Calvert-Lewin, and yeah, I mean, just informed that they'll be a presence to stop, no doubt.
Yeah, and Sam, obviously, there's a couple more players to pick out there, including a United target of old Jared Branthwaite. But are there any players you're sort of got on the radar, as always, for Everton?
Yeah, I mean, Cormac's right there to highlight NJ. I think this season he's been sort of a shining light for Everton and really dragged them out of tough games. So luckily for United point of view, he's missing. Beto, as you said, he's obviously the target man up front. Alcaraz played very well against Crystal Palace. Obviously scored the winner. Obviously he has previous Premier League experience playing for Southampton. And yeah, Braithwaite at the back as well. On his day, he's not a bad player. I mean, in the reverse fixture of this game this season, I don't think he actually had his best game by far. But that's the thing with Everton. They shouldn't be maybe where they are in the league. The league table sort of deceives sort of the quality of sort of a few individuals in their team. But it's the same with United in terms of individually we have quality, but it's just in games we just haven't been sort of showing that. So yeah, I mean, overall there's a few key individuals there that we should watch out for.
I'm also looking out for, obviously, England number 1, Jordan Pickford. You can never rule him out of a big game, and he's an enigma to me. I mean, I've said before on a podcast that to me he can't play in derbies because he almost gets too into it. You know, he loves a derby, but it's almost like he loses concentration at certain key points. But you just know that whenever you face Jordan Pickford, when it's your team facing him, he just pulls off an unbelievable game. I think he's a fantastic keeper. He can be hot and cold. He's more hot than he is cold. Just hoping we turn up and it's, he's -1. We'll see what happens there. I'm not looking forward to facing up to Jordan Pickford, but I am looking forward to the rest of the podcast, and we'll bring you that after this.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements, designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
And we have to come across the multiple news organisations that are reporting that apparently Amorim is close to being sacked by the board. Let's just pause for a minute and listen to how stupid that sounds. We've got a manager who we've tempted away from Sporting, who was, at the top of the league, flying high against City in the Champions League, and yet 4 months down the line, we're thinking of already getting rid of him. Sam, this is, worrying that the board is not learning anything. It cost, again, reports that £14 million to, sack Ten Hag of the role as manager. Will this board ever learn anything about keeping the faith, keeping patience? What's sacking a manager going to do now?
I mean, no, I don't think they'll ever learn from their mistakes in the short-term future anyway. It seems that way. But in terms of Amorim getting the sack, I find it very hard to believe. I mean, nothing would surprise me anymore out of this season. But I think if that were to happen, it would reach a whole new low as a club. I think that would just be basically public embarrassment, and the reputation of the football club would, as I said, go to a whole new low if we're sacking a manager just 4 months into his job, when really it's clearly not entirely his fault. Okay, he is partly to blame for the results, but I think it's almost an impossible task, him coming in mid-season with the squad he has, trying to play a system that he doesn't have the squad for. So yeah, I mean, if that happens, I mean, it's hard to believe really, but yeah, as I've said, who knows, to be honest, because we also do know the board are trying to cut are cutting jobs and trying to save money. I mean, if they cut the guy who's right at the top, the manager, then anyone can get it, apparently. So
it just feels like it's going to be remember when Palace had Frank de Boer for, 9 games? Maybe shorter than that. It's going to be one of those scenarios, isn't it, Cormac? It just shows you it's not impossible.
No, I mean, only difference is I think that was start of the season. But yeah, I mean, if that were to happen with Amorim, extremely harsh. I think the board really threw him in with the Sharks. You're pointing him with, he has none of the players he wants, can't really play with the system he wants. And then in January, you go out and get, a left back for him and then a young centre back. Yeah, I mean, it's just strange decisions by the board. I'm not sure, even if, there was talks of Amirim wanted to stay until the end of the season, but they wanted him now. We were playing well under Van Nistelrooy. I honestly would have maybe liked to have seen Van Nistelrooy take over for a little bit and then get Amirim in the summer where he could get those signings in. But no, yeah, I just think that the board really done one on him, and then for them to turn around and possibly sack him just would be extremely harsh. I think it just wouldn't make sense to me at all.
It's a unanimous decision here at the Daily Manchester United. We want Amorim to stay. I mean, let's face it, it's a bare bones squad, which in our last part we'll have to try and cobble together a team which might not look too different from the last game. But Cormac, it's one of those where injury crisis, again, injury crisis seem to happen 3 or 4 times a year at this club. Right now, we have, I think it's 12 senior players that are fit. But what happens next for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I mean, we talked, or there's been talk in the podcast all week about the young players we had on the bench and stuff like that. I feel like given the squad numbers we have, you have to start playing them more and see what they're able to do. It's not ideal, I know, but we literally have no one else. Hopefully Ugarte and Collier can come back, not that far away, sooner rather than later. But yeah, I mean, in terms of, I think just getting them experience, because we're going to need them the rest of the season, especially if we, start progressing down the Europa League, latter stages of that, and still going in the FA Cup. So yeah, I think just the best thing to do is give them game time and really just get them used to first team football. And we just need numbers. So I thought against Spurs, we started to look tired at the end, and we just, even fresh legs in there would be a massive help.
I mean, Sam, you just got to get into the mind of Amorim in this one. I mean, he made one substitute, was to bring on Chido Obi 2 minutes before the end of the game, where he only makes one substitute. But maybe it runs a little bit deeper. Why is Amorim not using that sort of youth rank that he has?
Yeah, it bewilders me. I don't really understand it, and that's why I said before where Amorim is partly to blame for sort of some of the results, and I do think it's sort of he can if he were, his substitutions do sort of bewilder me sometimes. Even we were speaking earlier on in the season about him flip-flopping centre-backs during games, which I don't like particularly. But then, as you rightly pointed out, he only brought one sub off the bench with 3 minutes to go, and you can't really impact the game sort of in added time like that, really. And as Cormac pointed out, we look tired, we look leggy. I mean, look, I get it from, on the one hand, I do get it from Amirim in terms of he's looking at his bench and he goes, I have no one to bring on. I don't know who to play, because, to be honest, throwing any of the young lads on in that scenario is very tough for any of them. I mean, the only person to have a Premier League appearance on that bench was Lindelof. So, I mean, I get it to a certain point where he's looking behind him and I'm going, he has no options here. But at the same time, as Cormac said, why not? Why not? Just try it. Just try something. I think at this point, if I was Amorim right now, I'd sort of just sack the league off. I mean, it is basically finished for us anyway. So I'd whack the youngsters in for a couple games or however long it takes for some of our players to come back, and then just focus on the Europa League. I mean, that's our only hope really this year of some sort of success and some sort of joy, in terms of if we do obviously win the Europa League and have Champions League football for next season, then there's something there to look forward to. I mean, we were talking about Amorim potentially getting sacked there. I mean, as I said, I don't think it'll happen, and the only way that'd happen is if we get relegated. But I mean, that's not going to happen. So why not in the league? What?
Big claim.
Yeah, come back to me in May.
April.
In the league, just throw some of the young lads on, and you never know, one of them might prove something that, you know what, we go, you know what, you've got a bit about you. You can play a bit more games. So, but them just sitting on the bench, it's pretty pointless, to be honest.
I mean, Cormac, I'll sort of ask that question to you as well, in a case of why hasn't Amorim been using that youth a little bit more? I mean, in fairness, he's brought through Toby Collier as well. Now, that's a knock-on effect of he's made previous appearances before. Nevertheless, why is Amorim not doing that? And maybe just to sort of push the boat out a little bit, is he not using the youngsters because maybe it's too big of a risk, considering we're only 12 points above the relegation zone?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, a lot of the injuries we had were right before the game, so I feel like maybe in his defence, he kind of last minute had to call them up, didn't really know much about them. I'm hoping now with a week under their belt to train and he feels more comfortable using them, might throw them in a bit more minutes. But yeah, I think, it comes down to really, I feel like he just doesn't trust them at the moment. He feels like he's built a bond with a lot of the players there and he's been using them all under his tenure right now, that he has the most trust in them. But yeah, I mean, we're down to bare bones, and I'm hoping that this week has done well and he trusts them a lot more and he'll give them a lot more time. And yeah, Sam made a good point. I mean, Premier League, I don't think we'll get relegated either, knock on wood. But I feel like, Europa League could be the saving grace for us, even FA Cup. So I feel like Premier League is definitely the time where these young lads should be getting minutes.
It's a mad statement from you both. We'll check in at April and May and see what happens on that fixture. In the meantime, though, we're going to go away and have a little bit of an advert break. But when we come back, we've got to cobble together a bit of a combined 11. Spoilers, it might not be that different from the Tottenham game. It might be more of a wish list. But join us for that after this.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Okay, here we go. Probably the most predictable combined 11. Not combined 11, predicted 11. Combined 11's a lot more hostile. Predicted 11 then. Let's start in goal. Cormac, kick us off.
Yeah, Onana, as easy as that.
Yeah. Short and sweet and to the point. I love it, Cormac. Are you having a similar stance here, Sam?
I mean, yeah, basically, yeah. I don't see that changing unless we get another injury, and then that would be. I mean, I wouldn't put it past our goalkeeper getting injured, to be honest, at this point.
It would sum it all up. 1 down, 10 to go. Let's have a look at our centre backs then. We sort of started out with Mazraoui, Maguire, and De Ligt in the Tottenham game. Sam, predict any changes, or are you looking at the same back three?
Yeah, I think I'm looking at the same back three, to be honest. I mean, if we're asking what I potentially want to see, maybe chuck Heaven in there, or maybe not from the start, but I'd like to see him get a couple minutes. Obviously, we brought him in from Arsenal, I believe, so we must have brought him in for a reason. So why not just chuck him in, maybe with like, I know I've just said I don't like centre-backs flip-flopping, but if it's for an academy lad to come on, if we're in a position in the game to do that, then hopefully gets a couple minutes under his belt.
He's already gone back on himself here, Cormac. Now's your chance.
Yeah, no, I actually was going to say the same thing, to be fair. I would like to see Heaven, start. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not. I think it's going to be the same back three, but there's been a lot of hype around Heaven, and I think United fans are excited to see what, all this hype's about. So I'd like to see him, but I think it's going to be the same back three, Mazraoui, Maguire and De Ligt.
Yeah, I think barring anything major, we are probably seeing that. Although I probably might have to disagree with you both. I think if there's going to be a centre-back switch, I honestly think Lindelof will get the nod. I mean, he's got the more experience. I think he might put his faith into someone who's made 180 plus, I think it's 180 plus Premier League appearances. Someone will have to fact check me on that one. Nevertheless, he might get the call before Aiden Heaven. Whether that's the right or wrong call, we'll have to find out. Whether he'll make any subs in that game, we'll have to find out. But I think I agree. Mazraoui, Maguire, De Ligt is probably going to be our back line. Moving to our holding midfielders then. Last time we started out with Casemiro and Fernandes. Cormac, I'll come to you this time. What are you expecting?
Yeah, I mean, I'm expecting the same. Not much on the bench.
Shock.
I'd like to see possibly, Kone I've heard a lot about, haven't seen much of him, but I mean, yeah, I think it's fairly set in stone. It'll be Fernandes and Casemiro.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there. Sam?
Yeah, same with Cormac. I think we'll expect Fernandes and Casemiro to start again. I mean, against Spurs, I actually felt bad for Casemiro, to be honest, in terms of he's having to cover so much ground in there, and he just can't do that anymore. And it's not entirely his fault, the performances he's putting in. I think this system, it's proved now that this system isn't a fit for him, and he is one of them where I'd be looking to sort of move on in the summer. But for now, as we've mentioned, we have no other option. And I agree with Cormac there. If there is another youngster I'd like to see get some minutes under his belt, it's Kone, because the exact same with Heaven. We've brought the lad in for a reason. He must be a talented player, and we must see something in him. So if we're in a position in the game to do that, I'd like to see him come on for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, just for a bit more experience as well.
Yeah, experience is, you can't get much better than going to Goodison Park. That's how much experience as you can get in the Premier League. I kind of have to agree. I think there's not many options starting-wise. Casemiro and Fernandes makes the most sense out of the most fit players. Collier is out with a knock. He's doubtful for the game, but not entirely ruled out, so we'll have to wait and see. He could be making a sniffing at making a change with Casemiro and Collier, say 60, 65 minutes at some point in the game. Only if Collier is fit, though. Wing-backs then, again, I think I'm starting to see a pattern here. We start on the left with Dorgu, on the right with Dalot. Sam?
Yeah, pretty much the same. Dalot and Dorgu, maybe they switch switch sides, sorry. Obviously, Dorgu started his first game on the right, and now he's gone back over to the left. But in terms of the fullbacks, and that right-hand side particular, I know we just mentioned Fernandes there. I mean, something has to change against Everton. I mean, what we were watching on Sunday night when we played Spurs, the system was just all over the place on that right-hand side with Fernandes up and down. Dalot didn't know whether to push up or inverted. So it was just all over the place. So I want to see how Amirim changes that. But it's hard to see how he changes that with the exact same players in a week. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, the last time he got a full week with the squad, he managed to pull off a win, didn't he? So, hey, stranger things have happened. Cormac, how are you looking at the wing backs?
Yeah, no, I think it'll be Dorgu and Dallo. I thought Dorgu actually against Spurs was one of our better players. He looked very positive moving forward. He was making good runs, just wasn't getting the ball. And then Dallo, I feel like Dallo still shades of what he was last season. He had that half chance that kind of got blocked on the line early on. But yeah, no, they'll be the two fullbacks, I think, no doubt.
Yeah, the Daily Manchester United Player of the Season 23-24 would have buried that. Unfortunately, this is Dallo of 24-25, and it's not quite the same. Right, looking at the attacking midfielders then, and attacking midfielders is used in the very lightest terms. Who are we thinking then, Cormac?
Yeah, I think it'll be Garnacho and Xerxes again. I thought
No way!
Yeah, who would have thought? I thought Xerxes, though, to be fair, I thought he was our best player against Spurs. He had some silky movement about him, and he just looked like a complete baller, really, and was one of the few players I thought that really kind of stood out. And then Garnacho, he'd be starting again, but if we had other players, I wouldn't start him. I thought he let us down. That big chance he blazed over the crossbar. I just don't know how he is in finishing that, a player of his, quality. So yeah, it'll be them too. Unfortunately, one of them I wouldn't like to see, but yeah, it'll be them too.
Yeah, Cormac's made that pretty clear, Sam.
Yeah, I think it'll be those two as well, and I agree fully what Cormac said there in terms of Joshua Zirkzee. I mean, he's slowly starting to prove me wrong here in terms of when he first joined the club and at the start of this season, I just quickly wrote him off basically, and I think a lot of people were sharing the same ideas in terms of I just didn't think he was cut out for Manchester United. I just didn't think he was good enough. But since that Arsenal game, I know we said it last week as well, but since that Arsenal game in the FA Cup, he's looked a completely different player. Silky on the ball, great touches, and on the left-hand side, Garnacho will start again, and how he didn't score on Spurs is beyond belief, to be honest. I mean, he'll start on the left-hand side, but the chances he missed, we need to be seeing him put them away, because they're costing us games, basically, so...
I think the lack of communication, the lack of, I guess, chemistry between Garnacho and Dorgu down that left-hand side, where Dorgu, as Cormac said, was making the runs and just was never getting the ball, and that ball needed to come from Garnacho on the overlap or the underlap, whatever it may have been. So, yeah, hopefully there's a little bit more chemistry between them in the next game, and hopefully we can see those runs get to good use for Dorgu. And then up top then, who's taken the striking role? No prizes for guessing. Go on, Sam.
Well, I want it to be Obi. I really hope it is Obi, because, look, it's sort of the opposite feeling for me with Højlund that I shared with Zirkzee in terms of last season. I thought bit of potential here, and Højlund, not a bad little player. Like we can sort of see what he becomes in a United shirt. But honest to God, that performance against Spurs is making me hate watching him. Like genuinely, I think that's the worst performance I've seen Højlund put in for United. And honestly, I'd play Obi. He won't. He'll start Højlund again. But that's droppable. That performance that Rasmus put in, and look, he seems like a decent guy. And as I said, on his day, he can be a decent player. He's a good finisher when he's in front of goal. But my God, the amount of times he tries to hold the ball up and lose it, or pass it and give it away, I just don't know what's happened to him. I have no idea what's happened to him, whether it's lack of confidence or what. But he's one of those players that's really been affected by our form. And look, hopefully he turns it around sooner rather than later. But honestly, Obi needs to start, in my opinion, and just sort of not send a message, but just say to Højlund, like, look, maybe you need a break, just one game off, and also be like, look, you had a bad performance, so you're on the bench. I think if there's no sort of retribution to putting in performances like that, then we're just on a crash course, basically. So yeah, I hope Obi starts, but it'll be Højlund, I imagine.
So Højlund's biggest fan reckons he will start. How about you, Cormac?
I know I share the same opinion. I'd love to see Obi Mertens start. His record underage has been very impressive. He can obviously score a goal. But yeah, I do think it will be Hoyland starting. But no, as Sam said, I mean, Hoyland, we pay 70 mil around there from, you're expecting more from him. His whole of play, as Sam said, isn't great. It seems like he's just doing cardio most of the games. Granted, the service hasn't been great to him, but you'd expect a lot more from a striker paying that much for. And yeah, no, he just hasn't been really doing much for us at all over the last number of games. But yeah, I do think it will be Hoyland starting for us.
Yeah, I can't remember if it's £70 million or €70 million. Either way, it's £60+ million. And for paying for that money, you're expecting someone to come into the starting 11 and get you the goals that you need. I mean, look, I'm a bit biased here. I do like Hoyland. He's one of those players that, he gets in behind. He's a bit of a menace once he gets into the box. And he was getting some shots on target. Unfortunately, they were straight at the keeper. So he needs to work on that as well. I think the heart says Chido Martin starts, but the head, and I think Amirim will start Rasmus Hoyland. This 11 here is very predictable. There's not much leeway because I think we're all of the same sentiment that maybe Amirim is not going to use the youth. But my final question to you both, it's the big one. There's two questions. It's a two-parter. Sam, what's the score going to be, and how many subs will Amirim make?
Well, I went positive last week, and that was before the injury crisis we had. I definitely wouldn't have gone for a win because as soon as the injury list came out, I knew we were absolutely finished. So I'm not going to be too optimistic this week, to be honest. Goodison, early kickoff, just screams of an absolute loss there. So yeah, I'll go 2-0 Everton, and I think we'll make it. Hopefully not, but I just do think we'll make it pretty easy for him. And in terms of his subs, I'll be more optimistic in that one. I do think maybe he'll throw on a couple youngsters at the end. So maybe
give us a number, Sam.
Maybe 2 or 3.
No, come on, Sam. You can't sit on the fence for this.
All right, we'll go with 2 then.
2, okay, all right. Cormac, over to you. Same 2 questions.
Yeah, no, I was actually, before Sam said it, thinking 2-0 as well. I think Everton...
It's negative. So negative.
I try to be positive, but I mean, it's tough, after the results we've seen, and Everton, one of the most informed teams in the league right now. So I have to be a bit realistic about it. But I think United's defence won't capitulate. I think we'll keep most of it at bay, but I think we'll struggle on the attack. So yeah, I think Everton 2-0. And then in terms of subs, I think actually this time he might throw on a few youngsters. I'm going to say 3. I think he'll make a decent amount of changes and freshen up the legs in there.
Right, these 2 negative Nellies out there are predicting losses. You know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win. We're going to steal a win at Goodison Park, our last time there potentially. And I reckon it's going to be Harry Maguire in the air. Just the aerial power of Harry Maguire. Look, someone's got to be delusional, haven't they?
When's the last time we scored a corner, Kieran?
I'd rather not answer that question. The point is, he will get on the score sheet, I reckon. And in terms of subs, I agree with Cormac. I think it's going to be 3. I don't think he'll go overboard with the substitutions, but I think there'll be more than 1. In fact, triple, we're predicting. And that's it. We've reached the end of the podcast, and hopefully you've enjoyed your Friday. Hopefully you don't think too much about Saturday. Remember, Saturday, 12:30, TNT Sports against Everton. Our possible last chance to see Goodison Park. Now you know which channel and what time to avoid. No, don't do it. We need their support. They need our support. And hopefully we have maybe a few surprises on the bench. Maybe someone's fit. Who knows what could happen in this latest chapter of Manchester United. It's a fun chapter. It's been a roller coaster and it's far from done. Thank you so much to Sam and Cormac for joining me along on today's podcast. From me, Kieran, enjoy the rest of your Friday. Try not to think about Saturday. And hopefully we come back on Monday with full smiles on our faces as Harry Maguire gets the winner. You heard it here first. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.